Today I want to talk about time. A lot of us feel like we have time and it's always on our side, but the fact of the matter is God is always speaking to us, and sometimes we're not listening. But the question is, are we too discouraged? Are we too distracted? And are we too hurt to listen? So today I just want to, again, talk to you about time and listening to God when He speaks. You know, I want to go over a pretty popular story in the Bible that talks about someone who had to spend a lot of time in order to get to their position and complete their assignment in life. And that's Joseph. Joseph's story can be found in the Bible, in the book of Genesis, chapter 37 through 50. And Joseph's story starts off normal, just like everybody else's story. He basically was a kid with a dream. And this dream was a God-given dream. When he shared this dream with his brothers, they hated him for it. They didn't like the fact that God had something special planned for him in the future. So, what did they do? They threw him in a cistern. They threw him in a cistern. And this is crazy. Have you ever had something like this that happened to you before? You ever been betrayed by someone that you trust and someone that you love? Someone that was supposed to have your back, but instead they stabbed you in your back? That's crazy, right? Well, that was Joseph. Nonetheless, Joseph, he basically was thrown into a cistern and he basically had to get sold into slavery. And after he got sold into slavery, he went to Egypt, sold in slavery and went to Egypt in a man's house named Potiphar. Now, Potiphar was an official of Pharaoh in Egypt. And Potiphar, he pretty much had a good establishment. So Joseph, he got in there, did his job well. Potiphar trusted him. He was responsible and did everything he was supposed to do. But then out of nowhere, he gets accused, falsely accused at that, by Potiphar's wife. Now, Potiphar's wife wanted to have sex with him. She basically put him in an awkward position. And so Joseph had to run out on her. He refused. He didn't want to disrespect God. He didn't want to disrespect Potiphar. So he refused the sexual advances that she had given him. So she lied and basically said that he raped her. Now, can you imagine that? All of a sudden, he's falsely accused for doing the right thing, and his name gets dragged through the mud. It's a very unfortunate situation. But nonetheless, when all this happened, he was thrown into prison. And when he went there, he was not just physically in prison, but he was there mentally, he was there physically, he was there emotionally, and he was there spiritually. And this dream that God had given him when he was a kid pretty much felt like a joke at this time, because now he's in a place where nobody can recognize and see his value in prison. But he remained persistent and he continued to believe in God. Nonetheless, as all of this happened, he basically went on, stayed in prison. While he was there, he met two men. One was a cupbearer and another one was a baker. Now, this cupbearer basically was someone who basically would carry a cup, serve the drinks, pour the king's drink, and taste it. Because in that time, they would pretty much try to kill the king and they would try to poison him. Nonetheless, one was a cupbearer, the other one was a baker. Now, one day these men had some disturbing dreams, right? These dreams were so disturbing that Joseph recognized it, and he went over to talk to him and said, "Hey man, what's going on? I noticed that you guys something's wrong basically." And so Joseph was blessed with the ability to interpret dreams. That was one of his God-given talents. As he interprets his dream for the cupbearer and for the baker, the cupbearer dream was pretty good. He had a dream, and after it was interpreted, he was going to be released from prison in 3 days. And Joseph told him, "Hey man," Joseph told him, "don't forget about me. remember me when you get out of here. Don't forget about me. But for the baker, basically he was going to be killed in 3 days. Nonetheless, things played out just like he said they would. And the cupbearer gets released. And guess what? He forgets about Joseph. Crazy, right? After he forgets about him, he stayed in prison for 2 whole years. Didn't hear nothing back from the man. But at this moment, Joseph, he could have been very discouraged. He could have been very angry at the cupbearer, at God, at the system, everything. But he stayed faithful. He stayed in there. He hung in there. So after that, 2 years went by. Then all of a sudden, Pharaoh has a dream and he needs his dream interpreted. And all of a sudden, the cupbearer now is like, I know somebody who can help you with that, who can help you interpret this dream. So they called upon Joseph. He went inside the prison. They pulled him out, got him all cleaned up, took him to Pharaoh, and he was able to interpret Pharaoh's dream. Now, when he interpreted this dream, it wasn't it wasn't Joseph himself that interpreted this dream. It was God who interpreted the dream for him. And so after all this had happened, the dream was so big and it was so major that Joseph had to be put in a position to where he had to be second in command all over Egypt. Ain't that a trip? The whole time that he's been suffering from the pit that he was thrown in by his brothers, sold into slavery, working for a man named Potiphar, being thrown into prison, forgotten about, left. And then all of a sudden, he's in the palace and he's second in command over all of Egypt. That's how God will do you. He'll prepare you for your lesson. He'll prepare you for your future, your goal, and things that he has put in your life. Now, I know a lot of people is probably saying, hey man, I heard of this story before. Man, that's Bible talk, man. That stuff happened years ago. You know what I mean? Tell me something that I don't know. Let's talk about somebody who served a real crime, did some real time. Let's talk about that. You know what I mean? So, no problem. I got it. Let's talk about David Berkowitz. David Berkowitz. This was someone who terrorized the streets of New York in the 1970s. And he went by many names. One of the names he went by was the 44 caliber killer. Another name he went by was the Son of Sam. Ring a bell? So this guy here was a serial killer and he terrorized, again, the streets of New York. He was probably one of the most feared serial killers at that time in this country. But nonetheless, just like all of the majority of them, he was caught. And when he got caught, pretty much society had written him off completely. He was done for. But when he went to court, he was sentenced to life in prison. Life. No of getting on parole. So I'm pretty sure at that moment he was counting himself out at that time. But nonetheless, he stayed in the game and he went to prison. He had to serve his time. But while he was in prison, something unexpected happened. He met an inmate. One of the inmates, they gave him a Bible. And when he received this Bible, when he first started reading it, just like any other thing, on paper, didn't mean anything, didn't mean much at all. But one day, he was reading the book of Psalms, chapter 34, verse 6. And it talks about how a man cried out to God, and God listened. And I'm not sure what it was about that verse, but something broke inside of him. Something changed. And as time went by, he gave his life to Jesus Christ. He sure did. He basically cried out to God at that time. And when he cried out, he didn't cry out as a monster or a murderer, but he cried out as a man begging for mercy. And God answered his prayers. From that time on, he pretty much was able to get his heart changed, get his mind changed, and later his life changed. Now, of many conversions in prison, and it's hard to believe that people can actually change in prison and stay changed. But, they're solid. I believe this one is real. And the reason why I believe it's real, because he's been offered parole several times. But every time he says, nah, I don't deserve to get out. God has given me an assignment to serve from the inside. Now, I've never heard of that before. I've never heard anybody being in a position where they did that. But nonetheless, he continues to grow as well. He continues to teach, mentor inmates. He writes devotions and letters to teens that are at risk so that they won't go down the wrong path. He gets interviewed by ministries and churches, and it's not to glorify his past, but it's to show people how God has changed him and how God has given him grace, and he's living for Jesus Christ now. So here we are. This man was called the son of Sam because he worshiped a demon named Samhain, but now he goes by the name the son of hope because now he worshiped God. Amen. So if you're somebody who's thinking that your past is too dark and you too messed up and you too jacked up, think about David Berkowitz. If God can minister and change a man like that, then he can change you. So Joseph didn't waste his time. David Berkowitz didn't waste his time, so you shouldn't waste your time either. So let me bring this story a little bit closer to home now. I got a homeboy named Mike, right? Now Mike had to serve 10 years in prison for a robbery that he committed. Now when he came out of prison, he pretty much didn't have much. You know, he'll easily back and reverted to do the same thing that he's known to do. I mean, he knows, right? He doesn't know anything else. He went in prison again at a very young age. So after he got out, he had no money, he had no support, and that's all he had was a heart to change, to do better. But you know what? God was talking to him at that moment, that time in his life. And this time, God listened. He was talking to God, and God listened. So time went by. He eventually met a nice young lady. He and that lady are engaged right now. They have 3 beautiful kids. And when he had these kids, he didn't run out on them. He didn't run out on his responsibility. He could have easily ran out of there and reverted back and panicked and said, I can't take this, this is too much, and made the best out of his life. But he didn't do that. He stayed in there. He hung in there. He stayed committed. Now, he found a job working at Sonic, flipping burgers, working long hours, barely making any money. But you know what? He hung in there. He stayed committed. Now, around about this same time, I actually was working for an AV company. And within this AV company, I was there and working full time. And he came in as a contractor, and we were working on office downtown, installing audio, video equipment into boardrooms and conference rooms, you know, mounting big televisions on walls and running cables, that type of stuff. Nonetheless, he was there. I met him, we connected. And I had my company on the side there where I was doing residentials, installing security cameras and mounting TVs and things of that nature. But I told him, hey man, you know, time allows, you know, come work with me. We can make some good money. I see some potential in you, man. Think you can pretty much do this for yourself. And so he agreed. So some time went by. We basically were able to get a lot of jobs and projects done at work, and we were knocking them out on the side too, in the residential side there, security cameras, mounting television, you name it. And later on, I moved away from the company, went on to a different company there. But Mike, he stayed in there. He hung in. And today, Mike still works at that company. He's now a lead tech, all right? He is skilled, he's certified, he's running a whole team, and now he's making some real money, you know what I mean? He's not flipping burgers anymore, you know what I mean, to get paid. And it's a blessing, it's a huge blessing. I mean, to building AV systems in businesses all across the country, from prison to purpose. This is huge. In fact, I spoke with him the other day. He mentioned that he would like to join me on a speaking engagement so that way he would be able to talk to men who have been in a position where they've had a record, went to jail, went to prison, but they want to get out, they want to do something positive with their lives. And he's gonna make a great speaker. I know he will, and I'm rooting for him. Look, here's what I know. God will use men who have been to prison. He have used men who have been through hell. He will use men who are basically in a position where they don't have anywhere to go. They don't have anything to do. He will take someone from prison, put them in a leadership position, and put them in a position of influence. Now, one thing I know is I've seen it happen. I've seen him do it. And so I know it can be done. But we've got to listen. We've got to listen to God when he's speaking. We can't drown out God's voice with anger, frustration, regret, doubt. We've got to come to God. Ask him, Lord, what is it that you want me to do with my life? What do you want me to do? What is it? I mean, went to prison. He didn't know how long he was going to be there, but he stayed committed. He stayed faithful, and he kept listening to God. Many of us have talents that are buried underneath pain. I'm talking to you today, and you might be going through something, and you have your talent, but it's buried underneath the pain. You may be someone who is a preacher, a mentor, a business owner, an artist, and a leader. But we've been listening to the wrong voice for way too long. But you just got to tune in and listen to God when he's talking to you. Sometimes God may not answer all of your questions today in a time that you want him to, but he might be able to try to, well, not might, but he will be able to plant a seed inside of you, so that way you'll be able to understand that you're not in a disqualified position, that things aren't over, but instead you're just training. He's preparing you for something bigger. He's preparing you for your purpose. He's preparing you for your mission that he's given you in life. So, challenge for the day, find some quiet time, alone. No distractions, no TV, no social media, none of that. Find some quiet time and go to God in prayer, meditation, whatever works for you. And when you go to him, ask him, Lord, what is it that you want me to do? What do you want me to do? And as you pray, be open to receive the message that he'll send back, because he can communicate with us in many ways. Sometimes it may be a memory or a person or an opportunity, a scripture, or maybe even just a whisper in our spirit telling us what we need to do. And when that happens, move in on it. Go at it like you've never gone before. Do it like you've never done it before, because it's your God-given assignment. It is your mission. And remember this, when times get hard, if God did it for Joseph, taking him from the pit, thrown into a pit by his brothers, thrown into slavery, sold into slavery rather, then put in a prison, then after that in a palace, second in command all over Egypt. If he can do it for a man named David Berkowitz, who was a murderer, a monster, and changed his name from the son of Sam because he worshiped demons to the son of hope because he worshiped God. If he can change it for my homeboy Mike, who went from committing robberies to building AV systems all around the country, then he can do it for you. Hang in there, keep the faith, and God bless.